So, this one time, my life took an unexpected turn that I never saw coming. Kala, my wife, decided to end our life together in the most hurtful way possible. You see, she had been seeing some guy from her work behind my back. The day she told me was surreal, like something out of a movie where you see everything but can't hear anything. My initial reaction was disbelief. We were partners. We had promised to be there for each other through thick and thin. And yet, here she was breaking that promise in the most painful way. But the betrayal did not stop there. Kala had the audacity to tell me that I needed to leave our home. Yes, the one we shared, the one filled with memories of laughter, of nights spent talking about our future, of us. Imagine being kicked out of your own life, forced to stand outside the door of your existence, not knowing where to go or what to do next. I stood in shock for a moment. My mind reeled as I tried to comprehend that the person I loved, the woman I thought knew me better than anyone else, could do something so cold. In her eyes, there was no remorse, just a casual insistence that I need to get out. As if everything was so simple, as if flicking off a light switch, one moment, light and warmth, and the next, utter darkness. I felt a knot in my stomach, a pressure in my chest. I wanted to scream, to shout, to demand why she was doing this. But what came out was a deathly silence, swallowed words that only reverberated within. Kala's face was a storm of confusion and anger, an odd reflection because the one who should have felt betrayed was me. But then, in those moments, all my mind could churn out was a simple, why? Why would she break everything good we had? Why now, when everything seemed to be going well? These questions circled around in my head like a carousel I couldn't stop turning. I felt helpless, empty, crushed by the weight of broken trust. The betrayal was a crack in the armor of my existence, slowly spreading until everything shattered. I couldn't help but think of all the moments leading up to this one, the countless mornings we spent having breakfast together, the small talks about our days, and the dreams we shared. My heart screamed that what was happening couldn't be real. Was this the same person who once stood beside me through life's endless challenges? Now she had chosen someone else, someone who didn't have our history, our story of love and endurance. I couldn't comprehend it. Every moment that flowed after her revelation felt surreal, like walking through a fog without vision, knowing each step could lead anywhere and nowhere at the same time. She betrayed me, and as misplaced and unjust as it was, the worst part was my own shame that I couldn't see it coming. But dealing with that reality was just the beginning. The moment Kala asked me to leave, a flood of thoughts overwhelmed my mind. Whether it was disbelief, anger, or despair, it was a storm of emotions searing through my chest, all because someone I trusted with my heart chose a different path. I left that day with my world capsized, betrayal marking the end of what I thought was a secure, loving marriage. Yet, even as I tried to make sense of it all, I kept pondering over how someone could flip the switch from loved partner to an outsider so easily, wiping away the life we had shared, the bond we had once cherished so deeply. Drifting in those dark clouds of disbelief, I decided that perhaps all I needed was a moment away to collect myself, away from the shards of my shattered life that Kala's actions had left behind. With those thoughts in mind, I gathered a few essentials, the mere basics, clothes and toiletries, enough to last for a few days. My friend, ever loyal and supportive, had invited me to crash at his place, an offer I grudgingly accepted. Settling into my friend's home was both a relief and a new wave of pain. Surrounded by someone else's walls, engrossed in the unfamiliar smells and sounds of a different household, I felt disoriented, displaced in body and spirit. Yet, there was a flicker of comfort knowing that my friend was there, ready to listen or distract, whichever I needed at the moment. Unlike the silence and accusation I left behind, his home was one of acceptance and understanding. As I settled into his spare room, I decided to devote those first few days to reflection. I needed to piece together the puzzle of events, to make sense of how my life had unraveled with just a few words spoken by the person I held most dear. It all seemed a blur, but in each quiet moment, I forced myself to remember her words, her demeanor. Was there remorse lurking beneath her urgency? Could I, in some small way, have seen this coming? Bit by bit, I pieced through the past, the small interactions, looking for signs, for cracks I may have ignored. I found myself consumed by these thoughts, burdened by Kala's betrayal, revisiting every conversation, every shared look or touch. Had there been a smile differently phrased, a talk too often about work? The quest for answers was driving me to madness, each thought a pinprick of what felt like self-imposed torture. The persistent questions kept flooding my mind. What had I done, or not done, to push her away? In all honesty, part of me searched for fault within, something tangible I could point to and understand, to rationalize the irrational choices she made. The darkness of those days threatened to engulf me, and each moment away from the familiar made me long for clarity and closure more than anything else. Through every tormenting loop of thought ran a thin thread of resolve. Despite the enormity of betrayal, I was slowly reaching an inevitable conclusion. I had always put Kala first, but maybe it was time to shift focus to myself. It would be a difficult road to tread, and yet, amongst all the devastation, I knew I needed to gather strength, piece by fragile piece, and begin the slow and steady work of healing. It was the only way to emerge from the ruins her betrayal left, to rebuild my life anew. The day I decided to return to my house and confront the chaos felt like the first deep breath after diving underwater, but that decision itself was another story unfolding. Steeped in a tumultuous swirl of emotions, I decided I could not linger in that suspended state, indefinitely cloaked in unanswered questions and unvoiced pain. As each day passed at my friend's place, clarity began to seep through my disarrayed thoughts like sunlight breaking through overcast skies. My vulnerability was slowly morphing into determination. Determination to take back control of my life, starting with my home, the space where I'd poured so much love and built so many memories. It was time to face the storm I'd been avoiding. Spurred by a newfound resolve, the decision was made. I had to reclaim my space, confront Kala, and address this turmoil head-on. With that in mind, a few days later, I gathered my things, thanked my friend for his unwavering support, and set out to confront the reality that awaited me behind locked doors. Arriving at the doorstep of the place that held the echoes of my life, my heart thrummed a chaotic rhythm. I stood there, just outside the protective barrier of my front door, the familiarity of which now felt foreign and uninviting, a testament to the betrayal that had taken place within its walls. Anxiety mingled with anticipation, but I was resolute. I could not live in suspense any longer. As I knocked, hoping to breach more than just the physical entrance of my home, the door swung open, revealing Kala. Our eyes met, and I saw, or imagined, a glint of surprise followed by something akin to defiance. Her face was a canvas of unreadable emotions, but I pushed past the rising tide of emotion to speak, my voice stronger than I felt. I expressed my desire to have a conversation, to unravel the threads of deceit and betrayal that now hung heavily between us. But Kala's refusal was immediate, her expression one of incredulity and anger at my presence. Her defenses rose as she stood blocking my path. In that charged moment, the realization struck hard. My rights in this situation were irrefutable. I wasn't just seeking reconciliation or understanding anymore. I was staking a claim to what was mine. Kala's actions had forfeited the privilege she had once held, and so with a steadiness I scarcely believed was mine, I reminded her that this was my house. The realization was like a guiding beacon amidst the confusion. Despite the intensity of her reaction, her disbelief and subsequent rage, I was resolute. Her barrage of words, accusing me of heartlessness, lacked the sting they might have had before. I listened, unmoved by her attempts to twist the narrative. Nothing she said could negate the facts. I had invested in our shared life, and though that vision had crumbled, the house was still mine. As her anger swirled, lacing the air between us with tension, I couldn't waver. I stood firmly in my truth and watched as disbelief lent way to anger in her eyes. Yet, this time, I was neither a spectator nor a victim. The lines had been drawn, and I was determined to see it through. In the end, faced with an impasse and her obstinate denial, I felt as if I'd run out of options. At that moment, it wasn't just about reclaiming the structure I called home. It was about reaffirming my self-worth, standing up against the wrongs inflicted upon me. I had no choice left but to dial for help, an action I never envisioned I would take against someone I had once vowed to love and cherish. When the police arrived, their presence was a focusing lens, aligning the distorted pieces of our fractured situation. Their calm yet authoritative demeanor filled the unsettled atmosphere with the weight of inevitability. Part of me dreaded the confrontation that would follow, a finality that spoken words would merely confirm. Yet, the bigger part of me held on to the realization that this was a necessary step, a catharsis that had to take place for me to move forward. As the officers spoke with Kala, explaining the legalities and the rights that rooted me to that place, I watched as her defiance crumbled into reluctant acceptance. Her eyes flickered with emotions too intricate to label, perhaps mingling betrayal at being called out with resentment towards the stark reality she faced. She had little choice as the officers gently but firmly reminded her of the truth. She had to let me back into my own home. Kala hesitated, her hand resting on the door handle just a moment too long, as if trying to hold on to a semblance of control. Then, with a deep breath, she stepped aside, yielding to the reality we found ourselves in. Crossing the threshold, I felt a rush of sensations, sadness, relief, empowerment, all mingling together as I took back what had been wrongfully denied. Though the path to healing and clarity stretched yet ahead, that first step back into my home was my silent pledge to myself, a promise to reclaim my life, much like the space I was walking back into. It was my beginning, even amidst the remnants of an end. With Kala's departure, a quiet settled over the house, a silence that resonated with both loss and the promise of new beginnings. I found myself navigating through emotions more turbulent than I'd ever anticipated. The echo of our shared memories haunted the walls, but they also served as a reminder of my resolve to heal and find stability once again. Facing the emotional fallout of Kala's betrayal demanded more than introspection. It required professional guidance. I started seeing a therapist, someone who could help untangle the complex web of emotions swelling in my heart. Each session allowed me to unpack the hurt and betrayal, transforming them gradually into stepping stones towards self-discovery and acceptance. The therapist helped me reclaim the narrative of my life, empowering me to focus on rebuilding rather than what had been shattered. Moving forward wasn't easy, yet it felt essential. I shifted my focus to self-care and personal growth, finding solace in hobbies long neglected. As my mind slowly quieted, peace came gently, weaving through the ache like threads of hope. While my view on marriage remains skeptical, overshadowed by the shadows of a painful past, I'm nurturing optimism in other facets of life. It's a journey of cautious steps and tentative dreams, an interlude before love could possibly be entertained again, enveloped in a self-assurance forged through resilience and renewal.